So a couple of interesting things. Let's, just for the sake of doing the show, let's say that Peyton does get named general manager. And now all of a sudden, where DePodesta seemed to be totally in charge, he kind of, if this happens, he kind of moves to the side, and Peyton walks in with Stefanski, and they kind of run their own little game.
Well, they run their own little game as long as they genuflect to analytics and to that side of the building.
Yeah.
And I think it was pretty clear, Les, that the old school guys like Dorsey and Alonzo Highsmith and maybe Kitchens to a lesser extent, I'm not sure, did not really welcome that input from the DePodesta side of the building. So, you and I were talking off camera when you hear that, well, finally the Browns will have alignment between the GM and the head coach. Well, I mean, they had alignment last year. John Dorsey picked Freddie Kitchens. They were, they spent time together before he made that hire. So I don't think there was an issue between those two guys. Maybe I'm wrong and somebody can call and tell me differently, but certainly this brings into play the sort of the forward thinking of that Paul DePodesta and the front office is bringing as far as analytics. This new regime is going to be more receptive to it.
All right, so I'm a little confused about a couple of things, which is the way things are. You got DePodesta, who you would. One thing you hear about Jimmy Haslam is he talks to a lot of people and he listens to a lot of people, and sometimes it's the last one out the door that he listens to, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that DePodesta is sitting 3,000 miles away, you wouldn't think he'd be able to continue the control, but apparently he does.
Well, I think, the way it was explained to us the other day when we were down there, Haslam spoke first in the Browns locker room and was asked the question about DePodesta and said that, he's very, very involved. He doesn't think of Paul as this, voice who comes into town every couple of weeks. DePodesta told us that he'd been there every week since training camp. He'd been in Cleveland or with the Browns.
Right.
Now,
and Tom Withers has said that he talked to him almost every week also.
Yeah, so I mean, I know I would see him at Browns games, in the press box or down in the outside the locker room or whatever. So he was coming in here, and he had decided. He said, going back to his days with the Mets, that he wasn't going to move his family because he'd have his extended family in La Jolla and San Diego area. That he would take on the grind of flying back and forth, and did it for 5 years with the Mets and continues to do it now. I know some people feel that that's like, well, if you're going to be running the organization, you should be here every day. Yeah. I just don't think that's what he's doing. I think he's giving them parameters for the kinds of people they should be looking to hire, and I think he's giving them, parameters for other ways of looking at analytics
it doesn't seem like
they apply to other parts of the organization.
Right, but now it doesn't seem like anybody in the NFL doesn't seem like they're logging onto this and saying, hey, look what they're doing in Cleveland. That's something we ought to.
Well, certainly there's not many. I don't think there's any other organization that has a director of strategy or a chief of strategy. But there are other organizations that on game days have guys with headphones on who are telling, they're in the conversation saying, third and 3 in this part of the field, this is what this team does 83% of the time, They try to help their people out that way.
Well, that's to be debated.
That it works, or that...
Because there's an assumption that each team is the same, that you have the same running game, the same passing game, the same... when you say 83% of the time, 67% of the time, you're all on equal footing, and we all know that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there are certain teams that are running different things. I mean, obviously, look at the zone blocking that Shanahan has decided to not decided. He followed his dad's footsteps on that. But I think a statistical study of what teams' tendencies are. If I were a head coach, I'd want to know that.
I'd want to know that also, instead of thinking of it as a threat.